Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 66. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Wednesday show, Steelers Nation. Dave, we have more COVID stuff to talk about. It may be 2021, but the storylines have not changed much. But so get ready for that today.
Boy, did you just say Episode 66?
Mm-hmm.
How about that? How about segueing us into something positive there to start the show off with?
I'm not following.
Who wore number 60? Wait! What's wrong with you? Huh?
I see what you're doing. I'm a little. It's early. I'm tired.
You need to start drinking coffee like I do. I drink enough for both of us, but go ahead, segue us now that I had to prod you.
Yeah, now that I'm a little quick on the draw here, I was on tape delay for that one. Yeah, the one finalist has been, one Steeler has been named one of the 15 finalists for the 2021 Pro Football Hall of Fame. That is number 66, Alan Faneca. Hopefully this is the year, as the old saying goes. Sixth time is the charm, hopefully, for Alan Faneca.
Boy, I tell you, and I wrote about this about a year ago, right? Talking about, man, kind of wondering when you looked ahead at the guys that were more than likely going to be finalists for this thing. I obviously expected Alan to once again be a finalist. He is one of the 15. However, boy, you look at that list, and it's a stout list. There's about 3 of them already that you can just, Mike Tomlin tried to airmail players to the playoffs. You can airmail about 3 of these guys already, I think, to the as being members of the class of 2021. I guess the good news when it comes to Faneca is it's him and Tony Boselli are the only 2 offensive linemen of the 15 modern era guys. And apologies to Tony Boselli, but now it's his turn to wait in the log jam line here. He should get in at one point here, but Alan Faneca more than deserving to go in this time if they'd go an offensive lineman here. There's really I think there's 2 spots that. Two of the 5 spots probably not spoken for at this time, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. It's a travesty, I think, already that he's not in there. Not that the other guys weren't deserving. The Mawais and the who was the Steve Hutchinson. Not that those guys aren't deserving at all, but they got the order wrong on that. And it's not just Steelers bias going through, because I watched all those guys play. I'm old enough to remember the careers of all those guys. And once again, I think Tony Boselli is very deserving of the Hall of Fame, but now it's his turn to wait in the log jam line, just like Allen had to do these last, I guess, specifically 3 or 4 years here. So, we riot if he doesn't get in this time. But you once again, if you look at that list, man, this is a tough class. It would be a hell of a class for him to go in on. And then obviously, look, you've got others going in from last year's class going to be all crammed into one ceremony. And then Bill Nunn is obviously a contributor finalist. That's just it's a formality at this point. Bill Nunn will obviously be part of the 2021 class, but they can make it extra special there by going ahead and doing the right thing. Get Alan Faneca in along with Bill Nunn in this 2021 class.
Absolutely, in the 2020 class, guys that'll get in: Donnie Shell, Bill Cowher, Troy Polamalu. So who are the locks here? We got Peyton. Obviously, Peyton Manning's a lock to get in. Are you putting Charles Woodson in that camp?
Man, I think it's tough to leave Woodson out of it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then you said 2 spots left, so who's the third? Is it Calvin Johnson? Is it Rondé Barber? Who was the third you were referencing? You said there were 2 spots.
Pull up the list here.
Right. The good news is, go Go ahead.
It's probably going to be tough to. I don't know what Zach Thomas. I don't think he's slam dunk. Obviously, there. Reggie Wayne's going to be tough to keep out. I think. And Calvin Johnson could be the other one. You have to think that one receiver is going to go in of that lot. You know, whoever it is. Torrey Holt. Kind of hard to make an argument for him over a guy like Calvin Johnson or Reggie Wayne there. But I think you're going to see at least one wide receiver in there. Peyton Manning's obviously a slam dunk. I think Charles Woodson's a slam dunk as well too. So saying that there's one wide receiver going to get in that lot would leave you with two modern era guys left, and one of them you would guess would be an offensive lineman, and I would think that would have to be Alan Faneca.
Has there ever been, and I imagine we could research it may take a little bit of time, has there ever been somebody to be a 6-time finalist the way Faneca is now to not make it in the Hall of Fame? I imagine that list is very short if it exists at all.
Yeah, I would have to research that, Alex. The biggest thing that sticks out to me when going back through and researching this is the amount of all pros, that he's had. There's not one with as many as Allen has. It's not in there.
Right.
And look, I mean, call it whatever you want to. Alan Faneca was should have one more All Pro award, if not for his kind of unselfishness. For that season that he had to kick out to tackle there for the Steelers and split time between guard and left tackle that one season due to injuries. If he's a selfish guy that season, I've talked about this and I've written about it on the site as well too. He has another All-Pro, and then we're looking at a 7-time All-Pro because without a doubt, and I think he actually received a couple of votes that year as well for All-Pro. And maybe played a part in Hutchinson getting one. But I forget how. I'll have to research my research on that and all. But I just think looking at and I'll have to research the angle that you came up with there. But just overall, the amount of all pros that Faneca has, the fact that he has that many and he's still not in, is just absurd when you look at the list of players that are already in.
Absolutely. We know that he deserves to get in. Hopefully he will get in. Hopefully this is the year. Unfortunately, we've been saying that since every single year he's been a finalist, and every single year he's come up just shy. So I'm not entirely sure who's doing the presenting for Faneca this year. I'm guessing it's back to Bouchette. I know he didn't do it last year, but he better stamp his feet and clap his hands and have the best presentation of his life, because this has to be the year for Alan Faneca.
And the bad thing about it is usually these interior guys get, for lack of a better word, crapped on, throughout time. And the further you get away from it, especially with these old fogies out, making these decisions right now, the more likely the guy like Faneca going to fall through the cracks, occasionally. Look, Donnie Shell fell through the cracks for years just because there was kind of that unwritten Steelers bias. They've got enough of those teams in there. But I think when you go back and one of the main arguments that I've made for Donnie Shell over the years was the fact that look at how Donnie Shell played after the last Super Bowl, last of the 4 Super Bowls that the team won. Incredible production from him, and then that of course goes along with the time that he was with the dynasty teams and all like that. So just guard and center are just kind of those positions that tend to fall through the cracks. Everybody wants to point to the tackles and all like that. It's a sexier position and all like that. So I think they'll get it right this time, Alex, but I think I may have said that a time or two. We've run this podcast long enough over the years. I think I might have said that a time or two in the past, so we'll see.
Yeah, I was looking back at past, finalist articles, and I think I had written the majority of them, and they were all essentially titled the same way. Faneca's a finalist, Heinz Ward is not. And that was the same story again this year. Heinz Ward not named one of the 15 finalists. That's no surprise to, I don't think, either of us, especially given the receivers who did make the cut: Reggie Wayne, Torrey Holt, Calvin Johnson, Heinz Ward. I love Heinz Ward. I know you love Heinz Ward. Always going to be appreciative of his efforts and that unique style that you'll rarely see again, if ever see again. But I know my most unpopular Pittsburgh Steelers' opinion is that Heinz Ward will never make it into the Hall of Fame, nor should he make it into the Hall of Fame.
I'm with you, Alex, and there was a time where I was the opposite of that. Maybe a little bit of the fanboy mixed in there, and over time, and becoming more and more of a student of the game and the history of the game. Obviously, as I've gotten older, since really starting the site in 2008, and you tend to mature, and you obviously a lot younger, half my age, have matured even faster because you become such a student of the game, not only in its current form, but look, I mean, you love the history of the game as much as anybody, and quite honestly, I think, as we move through the annals of time here, you would be perfect to be on a Hall of Fame, selection committee and all like that. Once the current slate of writers, beat writers, if you will. I'm trying to be nice here, and I think I've done a good job so far in that in this podcast. But you get where I'm coming from here. I think more objectivity needs to be brought into this. Not so much just because the team that you covered, the Peter Kings, the excuses that are in print of them not voting on some of these guys in the past is absolutely absurd. I'm embarrassed for them too, and I'm a kid that grew up reading the DeFords and the Peter Kings in Sports Illustrated, and had a lot of respect for guys like Peter King. I don't anymore, based on that kind of stuff there. The sanctity of the game, the history of the game needs to be kept intact. The people that appreciate, that know the difference between a right guard and a left guard come all-pro voting time. It's just the little things now, like, and boy, you got me up on the soapbox here, man. So everybody take your watch off here, okay? It drives me bats, man. Absolutely bat. And should the Hall of Fame classes be limited to 5 modern era guys, or maximum, or limit to that? Absolutely not. Should there be a prerequisite that 5 go in every year? No. If you only have 2 that are deserving to go in a certain year, then those are the 2 that should go in. I don't think you stretch it to meet a number, and on top of it, I don't think you cap it to on top of it. Now, on the flip side, you don't want this to become the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that reference means absolutely nothing to you, I guess. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has become just a laughing stock because everybody gets in. Everybody except Kiss for the longest time, which drove me absolutely bonkers. But that's for another. That's for post terrible podcast episodes. They're unfiltered, if you will. But you get where I'm going.
Because we're very filtered on the normal.
Yeah, and I think we are to some degree, and thank God probably for you for that. But going back to the whole Heinz Ward thing here. I think you can find somewhere on the blog where I have written over the years that he should be a slam dunk guy. But the further you get away from this and the further you study this, I don't think he should. I think he did absolutely kind of change the game, obviously with his blocking style. But I mean, let's face it, Mel Blount changed the game too. But Mel Blount had to play to back it up on top of being, having the Mel Blount rule. Heinz Ward. Was he ever considered in any given year, maybe one of the top 3 wide receivers in the NFL?
No. And that's the big thing for me. My criteria loosely is that you have to be one of literally one of the top players at your position for an extended period of time. And Ward was always close, but he never really got to that level even briefly, I don't think. And try to put him in the same conversation of Calvin Johnson then in that tier of elite play for an extended period of time. Calvin Johnson was the best at his position for several years. I know his career was much shorter than Heinz Ward, but it was much more elite play, much brighter at the very top. And Ward just never simply hit those standards. He came close, but just not enough for the Hall of Fame for me. And as more and more receivers get in, or at least are eligible, like a Calvin Johnson, that path for Heinz Ward is going to be, I think, even tougher once the stats for these receivers, like a Calvin Johnson and other guys, just simply surpass what Ward did.
And look, the era that he played in too is still that era where there were people that are out distancing him in yardage and all like this. So this isn't a Lynn Swann argument here, in my opinion. And I don't think it looks great on a bumper sticker. Two-time Super Bowl champion. Super Bowl MVP one time, and a handful of Pro Bowls that he has. But how many first-team All-Pros does he have?
Does he have any?
I don't think so. No, he's got some second-team ones in there.
No first team. 4-time Pro Bowl, 2-time Super Bowl, no first team All-Pro.
And if you want to go down the list and start putting everybody else in the Hall of Fame that's got maybe a 2-time Super Bowl and a handful of second team All-Pros, you better start forming a line probably, because there's a few of those, in there as well too. Once again, it's not a slight on him. He was absolutely, when you think of even today, and you think quintessential Steelers wide receiver and how everybody else needs to stack up right now, you don't really think about a John Stallworth or a Lynn Swann. You think Hines Ward. That's really kind of the first guy that comes to your mind. All right. Sure, he had the longevity. Sure, he had the reception total numbers based on the longevity. Never really a huge yardage guy though, because of the position that he played. On top of it. So, all apologies. He is was a great wide receiver, but it's not the Hall of Great. It's not called the Hall of Great. It's called the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's just receiver is maybe outside of quarterback, I guess, the most competitive position to try to get in the Hall of Fame. So many receivers, great ones, have had to wait, and I don't think Ward's time is ever going to come. So even if you think he should, in terms of the reality of it, I just don't see that path really ever opening up for Heinz Ward.
Now, never's a long time, but I don't think I'll live to see it. Will we get down into the annals of time with the senior committee? And I don't know, but I definitely wouldn't expect anything like that to happen in the next 20 years. And by then, I'm just going to be worried about not pooping all over myself if I'm still alive. I already do that now.
Remember when you said we were filtered?
Okay, all right.
No, that was legit. I laughed. I did not expect that one coming. All right, I'll try to transition from there.
Yeah, we're right. I think
Yeah,
So.
No, I think we're right. And by the way, the Hall of Fame class will be announced the day before the Super Bowl. That is the 6th, I believe, at NFL Honor. So that's when we'll know whether or not this is the year for Alan Faneca and also Bill Nunn. All right, Dave, let's transition to the COVID news that we kind of touched on at the start of the show. And yet again, the Steelers playing an opponent with a lot of COVID concerns. And this is pretty significant for the Browns. They had to close their facility yesterday. I believe their facility is also closed today. More players testing positive, including their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, which means Stefanski, who's done a great job leading the Browns to their first playoff appearance since 2002, will not be able to coach in this game. Also, several assistant coaches have tested positive, will not be able to coach. More players have tested positive, including and highlighted by left guard Joel Bitonio. So again, he will not be able to play Sunday night versus Pittsburgh. The game is still scheduled for Sunday night. According to the NFL, I think it would take something monumental for that game to be moved at all. But obviously the Browns really, struggling right now and having a lot of COVID issues as we sit here today.
I swore to myself after that last thing with the Browns was saying I went on a radio show and said no, they're not moving that game. After the first time that they had moved it, and then it got moved twice after that, and all after that I learned my lesson that I am not going to be surprised with anything that happens in a pandemic world related specifically to sports and even more specifically to the National Football League. I learned my lesson.
Playoffs feel different than regular season.
I don't care, Alex. My foot. I don't like how my foot tastes anymore when it comes to stuff like that. Now, am I 90, 97, 98% sure that everything will go off fine? Yes, but I'm not going to guarantee nothing at this point. All right? I have learned my lesson. All it takes is we've seen now how quickly the proverbial worm can turn, in a week when it comes to COVID. Just look at the Steelers. What happened? I was talking to my banker on a Saturday, this past Saturday, and my phone machine went crazy, there with the news on the Steelers and the Joe Hayden and the Eric Ebron and all like that stuff. So that's how quickly, just that close to game time, things can change here. Now, I'm not going to speculate moving forward, but I will talk about what has happened, and that's the fact that, boy, it's a huge blow for the Browns. Not only do you lose your head coach in Stefanski, several position coaches, and I think Callahan one that's still going to carry over and potentially not coach, I think, in this game for them?
Correct. He missed Sunday's game, Week 17. I don't know his status for Sunday night, but there's potential he could miss again, yes.
Yeah, how big a blow is that for that offensive line?
Huge.
And then, heck, we haven't even gotten to one of the two players that is now tested positive and ruled out for that game, and that's Joe Bitonio, left guard, the last 3 years, Pro Bowl guard for them. They have a great offensive line. Don't get me wrong, especially interior with both guards. But Bitonio is kind of the glue, if you ask me, that kind of holds that thing together. And him playing next to Wills over there too. Those two didn't have the best game, did they? Against a makeshift or backup Steelers front, if you will. And Wills not having Bitonio there playing alongside him, kind of coaching him up there as he goes along, I think is a big aspect. Not having Bitonio alone is huge because, one of the guys that Mike Tomlin decided to air mail to the playoffs is Cam Hayward. And you don't think that guy's about chomping at the bit right now. And then the guy that initially thought they might have backing or filling in for Bitonio,
Nick Harris.
Nick Harris, who I like to refer to as T-Rex.
Knew that was coming. As soon as I saw Nick Harris's name, I knew it.
With T-Rex there, he's going to miss the game because he was placed on IR with a knee injury. And that leaves you with a kid, I think, in Michael Dunn, former undrafted free agent, who's now scheduled to potentially make his first NFL start alongside a rookie at left guard against a guy like Cameron Hayward coming off of a full week worth of rest there. So that, you want to talk about the huge fallout out of all this so far, it's that.
Yeah, Dunn has played one career offensive snap. His second will come against Cam Hayward Sunday night. And so that is a monumental challenge for him, certainly a plus matchup for Hayward. And yeah, with Bitonio, not only is he just one of the top guards in football, he's just one of the most durable and available guards in football. It's weird for them to not have Joel Bitonio at all. The last time he missed the game for the Browns was 2016. This dude had one of the longest snap streaks in football, and I think was broken sometime earlier this season, but the dude has started all 16 games each of the past 4 seasons. So it's very weird to not have Bitonio at all at left guard, and certainly going to be even weirder for a playoff game where you don't have Stefanski, your head coach, your play caller, some other coaches, a couple other receivers may miss, other guys who are still on COVID that may not get activated in time, like Denzel Ward. We don't know their status right now. So the Browns will probably try to spin that as some sort of motivation type thing, but just from a practice standpoint, from a coaching availability standpoint, from a player availability standpoint, they are clearly at a disadvantage in this one.
Now, as far as pulling guards go, one of my favorite topics, as you know, yet another reason why Alan Faneca, boy, you just go back and I know you got some clips on your Twitter machine feed as well too, some old stuff with Faneca on the move and all. But as far as current NFL guards go, that can get out on their horse and pull and move. Now that Marshall Yanda's no longer around, boy, Bitonio's got to be top 3 or 4, right, in the NFL.
Yeah, he's up there, and obviously the Browns rely on their run game. That's how their offense is run literally through the run game, and so not having him will certainly be a loss.
So that's huge for them. The other guy, Kadero Hodge, wide receiver, more of a bit player. However, he did have a couple receptions for some decent yardage in this in that Week 17 game against the Steelers this past Sunday here. And then we'll have to see what happens with Donovan People-Jones coming off of a concussion. And did we mention Olivier Vernon the other day blowing out his Achilles on the Monday show there, talking about they're not going to have him either.
Yeah, and that's the guy that had a sack on Mason Rudolph on Sunday, part of that really strong Browns front four. And so they're still a strong unit overall, but not having Vernon for the season, unfortunate for him, is also a loss.
What's more impactful, the totality of this on them, or is it an individual thing like Batonio?
Well, I think it's the totality. I just think it's weird, not having Stefanski, your play caller, your coach, the guy everyone looks towards, the guy who's done a fantastic job this season. And I think Pat McAfee had talked about a similar story they had with Bruce Arians when he was with the Colts, where Arians missed a playoff game suddenly because of a medical issue, and just how weird that was in trying to transition. Now the Browns have some more time to prepare than what McAfee said he had and the team had. But I think just losing that leader and the guy that's gotten you through this crazy season might be the most impactful thing of all.
Who is their quarterback coach that's going to be calling it?
Alex Van Pelt, who was a Steeler, right? Wasn't
Absolutely.
he a Steeler back in the 90s? Yeah, for a brief time. And Mike Pfeiffer, at least how you say his last name, will be the interim head coach. He's a special teams coordinator, taking over Stefanski's role as head coach. So, yeah, very, very strange situation right now, but that is the life of playing football in 2020 and 2021.
And just cross your fingers that the week goes okay for the Steelers the rest of the way. Now, there's a report this morning that says Browns training facility remains closed today. Team is continuing to prepare. I don't think there's any more word of any more kind of outbreak with them. But look, that's one other aspect of it. Not practicing on a Wednesday. If you're them, you're hoping that maybe you can get back to work on Thursday. But I don't think that's guaranteed at this point. And boy, what does it say about? There was a report. Was it 3 different strains? I think of the COVID this time. So boy. Did they go out and celebrate like they had won the Super Bowl?
There's an irony in them making that TikTok that made fun of Juju's maskless dance, and then there's a COVID situation in the Browns locker room now.
Now, Grant, I'm not pointing fingers and laughing or anything like that, because look, we just saw the Steelers have 3 players get together and all like that. And say what you will about Juju, I think he runs all over town. Now, I'm hopefully he's wearing, putting his mask on or what all like that. But regardless of what you wear or don't wear, and the science or whatever boat you want to get on that, I know one way that you're probably not going to get it is if you stay your ass at home.
That should be the message. That really has to be the message right now.
And these guys, obviously you can't dictate what these guys do outside the facility. And you and I, talked about this a little bit, I think, on Monday as well too. Look. If you can't sacrifice now, when can you sacrifice? And you don't want to be that guy, that ends up missing a playoff game because you went out, you went down to the Burger King to get you something to eat, and you figured, no harm in this. I'll just wear my mask, and you come home and you got the COVID, So. Right. Keep your fingers crossed. That's all we can say, because we know we've seen firsthand, or not firsthand, but second or third hand, how quickly this thing can change during a NFL week.
Absolutely, and hopefully everyone who has tested positive on Pittsburgh and Cleveland side, has a full recovery and doesn't have too many symptoms. And by the way, Alex Van Pelt, drafted by the Steelers in the 8th round of the 1993 draft, never played for them in a regular season game, spent most, if not actually his whole career with Buffalo as a backup there. But Pittsburgh native, went to Pittsburgh, so that'll be an interesting storyline for Sunday night.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dave, some other housekeeping here. A little news that came across the wire this morning. For at least one more year, Heinz Field will remain named as Heinz Field. The Rooney family and Kraft Service Company / Heinz Field, whatever company you want to call it, said they have extended the Heinz Field name through, at least 2021, correct?
Correct.
All right, so that will be weird. It's just a 1-year deal. A lame duck stadium name.
Yeah, there was that. If you go
right,
initially it was a 20-year naming rights, I think thing, and correct me if I'm wrong. Heinz isn't really technically headquartered there anymore.
Right.
And I think there was an article in the Sports Business Journal a couple years back, kind of thinking that negotiations weren't going well at the time for the naming rights and extension. A lot of people predicted that this would be it on it. So I think they probably just got to a 11th hour situation there, and thus the 1 year extension. So obviously you wouldn't think that you're going to keep on doing 1 year extensions with the naming rights thing here. So it's hard to imagine Heinz Field not being called Heinz Field, right? But I think there's a distinct possibility of that happening after the 2021 season. Now, obviously, you cannot think about Heinz, regardless of where they're based, and not think of Pittsburgh. I mean,
right.
The two just go together, right? I mean, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But for right now, Heinz Field will remain Heinz Field through the 2021 season.
And I hope that continues, because stadium names rarely, if ever, get better. They always get worse whenever a new name comes up, some other weird corporate sponsor mashup, and even you're seeing the backlash for the Penguins having the PPG, I think, on their helmets now. That looks kind of weird, and so hopefully it remains Heinz Field. It's a good name, and I don't want to be playing at
NASCAR
Hertz,
game.
Hertz rent-a-cars / whatever. Certainly not Hunt's ketchup. You don't want Hunt's ketchup, but you know how some of these weird names that just aren't good stadium names at all.
Alex. Well, the Coca-Cola the Coca-Cola Budweiser Spirit Airlines Heinz Field looked pretty good today. We're not like, hey, we laugh. Don't laugh.
No. I mean, there were some terrible names out there. Just
look, we have here the new Raiders Stadium is Allegiant. There's they obviously are kind of a low budget airline and have had some issues here in Vegas, and really a lot of people don't even know about Allegiant outside of maybe that live on. I never had heard of Allegiant Airlines until really coming out this way and all like that. And they're more of a travel company than anything. But I'll almost guarantee you when their current contract runs out, I forget if it's 3 or 4 years or whatever it is, that they won't that the stadium will have new naming rights after that. And then on top of it, I don't think we're too far away from teams wearing a lot of patches on their uniforms and helmets because ad dollars are ad dollars, and I don't think we're too far away from that from basically NFL uniforms looking like a NASCAR.
Yeah, I was thinking about some of the worst stadium names. Some of the worst stadium names that exist in pro sports. The one that came to mind for me was Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, where the Cavs play. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. What a terrible name to play sports. So anyway, hoping that Heinz Field stays Heinz Field for a long time, and at least will stay through 2021. Some other news to get to. Kind of the whole story completed a full circle before we even had this podcast. The story, I think, broke on Monday night. The Houston Texans interviewed Steelers VP of Football and Business Administration, Omar Khan, better known as the cap guy, for their GM spot, although he has not been hired as their GM. That goes to Nick Caserio of the Patriots. And so that story kind of began and ended before we even got to really talk about it too much. But Khan getting his first interview in several years. His name was pretty popular back in the early 2010s, but he probably will be remaining with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Why do you think to this date that he hasn't gotten a job? I mean, I guess people say, well, he's known as a cap guy. How is he on the football IQ? But he's been around long enough now in this system, in the Steelers system. He shows up at all the major events now, right? I mean, the Combine, the Senior Bowl. I'm sure. I think there's pictures over the years of maybe him being at a pro day or two over the years. Is it just because people don't view him? They view him more as a front office money guy and not so much an X's and O's football guy. Why? I mean, he's still young enough, Why do you suppose that he hasn't gotten a job yet?
Yeah, he's only 43, I think, which surprised me. I thought he was older than that, but yeah, pretty young guy. I mean, I don't know for sure. I think that's probably the most likely thing is that yes, he's been around those aspects, but has he ever had to file a scouting report before, or a profile, or pro scouting, college scouting? Has he ever had to really evaluate player talent before? I'm guessing he never really has to really formally had to do that before, and most teams.
But we don't know that for sure.
We don't know that, but based on his role, I don't think a lot of that happens in the football and business administration
Yeah,
role.
but you don't think
Formally, informally, I'm sure he's been around that, but would you rather a guy that's been his job and that's what he does, or a guy that's just been around it more in an informal fashion?
Well, I mean, do we really know what his job is? What he does on a day-to-day basis? You know?
I don't think he's writing scouting reports.
All right, does Colbert?
I don't know if he does a whole lot now, but obviously that was his upbringing. That's what got him hired in Pittsburgh, because he was a scout and personnel director in Detroit.
I guess what I'm getting at, okay. I mean, what we're trying to establish once again, going back to what I said there, is it because maybe he's not as much of a football guy?
Yes, I think that's the issue.
Okay,
that's my guess. I mean, is there a better explanation than that?
Look, I mean, if you know, I would hope by now that Omar Khan could write up a pretty damn good scouting report. You know, I would hope. If he can't, then there's your answer.
I mean, but he doesn't really have a background in player evaluation.
But over the years, I'm sure. Well, once again, like I said, I bet. I mean, we're talking about a 20-year span here, almost, right? I mean, come on. I mean, if he hasn't dedicated himself to that end of it by then, and not pretty good at evaluating talent, then
that's like saying can Phil Kreidler be the Steelers cap guy? Like, just because he's been around it in the building.
Well, I think that's. I think numbers is a lot different than being on a football field evaluating football talent. I don't think you can combine math and the game of football there.
Well, I think it's just about an expertise. Is he an expert in player evaluation? Probably not. He's an expert in his field, in business administration and cap stuff and CBA related things, and all that's very important. But I don't think he'd be considered an expert in player evaluation and scout.
Yeah, but I don't think you come out of the womb as a scout, though, do you?
No, you're taught. You're trained and you learn, and that's your field of study, and that hasn't been Khan's field of study.
Well, you know what would be interesting is if they sat down with Omar Khan at some point and find out what exactly he does do.
Well, we basically know he's always been the cap guy, the
contract and contract negotiator and CBA specialist and all. But once again, I'm finding it hard to believe that over the course of 20 years that he's not gotten pretty damn good at evaluating football talent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he has. He's capable of that, but is he the best man for that job? If you can hire somebody that's been their job for 20 years. Probably not, but I thought it was interesting he got an interview at all, because I didn't expect that. I mean, just because he hadn't been interviewed in 5-6 years now, and I do wonder. I do cynically wonder if this was a Rooney Rule thing. I don't know who all the Texans had interviewed to that point to fulfill the Rooney Rule demand. But B, I just wonder in a year with a lot of cap issues, a lot of CBA stuff to wade through, if that was maybe getting him some more attention because of how important it is to have a good guy that knows numbers, knows cap, knows CBA well.
Here's the thing. If he don't get a job this go around, when will he ever get a job? Will he? I mean, it seemed like that ship had kind of sailed 5 years ago, right? You know, but once again, he's still a young man. And if he can't get a job in the climate now, as you mentioned, CBA not CBA uncertainty, but cap uncertainty with a lot of teams around the league due to the COVID and navigating through all that, that aspect of it. When can he get a GM job there? So I don't want to shift gears here, but the guy that the Texans are hiring. Tell me what you know about him. What makes him so good?
Not a lot. I know he was in New England, and I think you post a question of what made him the right hire, and somebody said he worked for the Patriots, and that's what got him hired. The report in there is that Casera wasn't even one of the 5 guys interviewed or picked by the search firm they had hired, but I think their interim GM Jack Easterby knows Casero, and they were close friends, and basically hired him on that basis. So I don't know if Casero was a good hire or not. I just know that's what the report is.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but those New England Patriot drafts the last 10, 12 years haven't been. I mean, there's some guy named Brady they got back in the 1900s or something in the 6th round that turned out to be okay. But for the most part, what do you think of the notion that the Patriots built through the draft?
Yeah, they've struggled with their draft picks, especially recently. So, I mean, that could be a fair criticism of Casero. Again, I don't know his whole background and resume and exactly what he was doing at New England. I think he was player personnel director, but obviously things get weird there with Belichick having so much power. But yeah, the drafts have not been special.
I'm not taking a shot at Casero. I just can't find anything tangible to grasp onto that says, oh, I understand why they hired him.
Right.
Kind of aspect of it.
The report is the interim GM just kind of went over the search firm's head and just hired his buddy, and that's the report. Again, cynically kind of viewing it. They wanted to hire him back in 2019, but the Patriots blocked it, and now they couldn't block it. So, that's the story there.
Well, that'll get you run out of a job real quick if you just go around hiring buddies. That guy. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out for them. And once again, back to the Steelers end of it and Omar Khan. I mean, if Omar can't get a job this go around, then when can he?
Well, the answer to that would be: is he going to be the heir to Colbert? That would be his best opportunity.
I think we've kind of thought now for about 2.5 years that's going to probably go to a guy. And why isn't Brandon Hunt? If Brandon Hunt's such a hot commodity right now, the guy that we automatically link to the Steelers now, why isn't he more of a hot commodity league wide?
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know the answer to that. I know the Eagles showed interest in him a couple of years ago, and he was able to stay with Pittsburgh, and that was certainly good for the Steelers. We don't know that Hunt's going to be the guy. There's a chance they could go outside the organization, the way they did Kevin Colbert. He came over from Detroit, but that's fair. I don't have a good answer to that.
All right.
Last thing with Khan is that I'm glad he's staying with the Steelers just because there is no real in-house replacement to replace Omar Khan, especially in a year where the CBA and contracts and financials are going to be maybe more important than ever. The Steelers lost Khan's assistant, Samir Suleiman, last year to Carolina when David Tepper was named the president there, the owner there, and hired Suleiman. They did hire somebody, Cole Marcoux, as a football administration guy, but he's a young guy that probably is not ready to take over some sort of full-time lead dog kind of role. And so having Khan around is going to be really important, and I'm hopeful he stays throughout the rest of the season.
Boy, they're going to need somebody to navigate through this cap.
Yeah, for sure.
This all season here. Would you like a quick update on that?
Sure.
All right. I think the Steelers currently have 33 players under contract for 33 players under contract for 2021. Obviously the rule of 51 works off the rule of 51. So just those if you take the 33 and then what am I hearing?
I'm not hearing anything.
Okay. My Game Pass kicked on me all of a sudden.
It does that sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, out of the blue, it just turns on there. Always got to keep Game Pass open, don't you? That's a must of what our job is here. Hopefully, nobody didn't hear the CBS theme going there. 33 players under contract for 2021. Now you got to roll. What I did is I took the minimum, the minimum salary. Actually, I'm sorry. It is 36 under contract here. 36 under contract. So what you got to do is you got to add in the minimum salaries to get to of the other players to get you to the rule of 51, and then that's kind of your working minimum total right now as we stand. And then obviously got to add in the dead money that's on the books right now for the team in 2021, and that amount is almost 363,000 in dead money on the books in 2021. That brings you to a grand total of what the Steelers have just on a raw estimated rule of 51 of almost $214 million. Okay. 214 and Obviously the low bar figure is 175 million is the lowest possible floor that the cap can come in 2021. So basically, you're looking at almost $39 million over the cap right now. All right. Now, that almost 214,000 that you have on the books is obviously going to, I've just got minimum salaries in there filling in spots 37 to 51. You've got a draft class to worry about. You also have to budget for this team's going to want $10 million in cap space going into the 2021 season through some machination of it there. So you might as well go ahead and count that as a $10 million cap charge because that's what technically it is. So we're looking at a team that, let's just say the number's 38 million, add 10 million onto it. You're looking at $48 million over a $175 million cap number. Now, there's been some optimism the last few weeks, if you will, that the cap will come in flat at 198.2. All right. If you want to believe that, that's fine. There's just it's not written in stone. It's all speculation at this point. My buddy Joel Corey will tell you don't believe anything more than 175 million until we're told differently. So even if it is, let's say it comes in slightly more than or right at the flat cap of 198 million. Well, 14, that leaves you about 16 million over the cap, which you can maybe work with that. And all. So people will say, well, Dave, how bad a cap situation is this 2021 Steelers team is? Well, if you got to give me a number to work with still. Are we dealing with 175 million or are we dealing with 198.2 million? That's a world of difference there. Now, obviously, you could do a little bit something with Ben Roethlisberger's contract, not much. You obviously can do something with the in restructures alone, you can get about 13 million out of maximum restructures there. But all that does is basically cover that 10 million. I told you that covers the 10 million that you'll need in cap room to start the 2021 season, and basically covers kind of maybe some draft class stuff or a practice squad, if you will, kind of thing. Nothing else. So, long story short, regardless if this number comes in 175, it's going to be cataclysmic. Okay, if it comes in 175 million cap number, if it comes in 198.2 million and remains flat, there's still going to be you're still going to need to be Omar Khan working some overtime there, I think.
Do we know the date of when this cap number is going to be known? Is it February sometime?
It's usually right around combine time, right? That we start getting word, but I don't think I think that's when teams are given the high sign. Hey, it's probably going to be right around this. Mm-hmm. But really, it's usually like a week or two before the start of the new league year when they get the official number. Now, will they try to get that number out a little bit earlier this year?
I hope so.
Because of the dramatic impact that it could have. I would hope so. I'd hope they do it for Cat fanboys like me. To have the posters of Omar Khan up on the wall. But we'll see. But when people want to try to pin me down right now, you can tell why there's so much uncertainty, because there's a lot of difference between 175 million and 198.2 million. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's optimism that it will come in, but I mean,
what is the optimism that's going to come in higher? What's fueling that?
The TV deals, the extra game, the 17 game schedule, other things, that have transpired, I guess, throughout this season that have produced some income, I guess, is kind of the things that I'm reading.
All right. I hope so. The higher the number, the better. I mean, 175, as you said, would be cataclysmic, I believe was the word you used. And if you can come in even at 190, anything will be a bonus for teams right now. That's why I meant to send you the tweet about that team that said it would be a bonus. Forgot to do that. Remind me to do that after the podcast today. And yeah, I like the Omar Khan poster. I think you have the Omar Khan Tulane rookie
Fathead.
card. The fathead. There you go.
Yeah, the Omar Khan Tulane rookie card. Yeah.
Yeah. You probably have it. Exists. I'm guessing you have it. But yeah, I think we're the only two people that care about Omar Khan's role and Cole Marco and the inner workings of the Steelers front office.
You mean the minutia?
The minutia. There you go. I should have used the word.
All right, I guess we should get for the people that we bored out of their ever-loving mind right now. I guess we should get to more stuff related to the Steelers and things that Mike Tomlin said on Tuesday.
Mike Tomlin had his Tuesday press conference. Whenever the injury report, a lot going on there. I'll probably let you explain it, Dave, because you wrote it up, and there's a lot to talk about. But overall, basically expecting Robert Spillane, Matt Filer to practice this week. Probably going to play against the Browns on Sunday. Other guys hopeful to return, including Terrell Edmonds, Chris Boswell. I don't know if that's guaranteed, but Tomlin at least expected those guys to return to practice.
Yeah, and we should probably find out any moment here across the Twitter machine, right? Because if a guy like Robert Spillane or Matt Filer were to resume practicing today, they would obviously have to be announced as having their window open. So it is now 11 o'clock Eastern time. I wouldn't be surprised if any moment now that we get word about the about guys like Spillane and or Matt Filer beginning that process there, and that would obviously have to be announced before they can do that kind of stuff there. And as you mentioned, look, we'll see. I mean, if they get back, it's a short, how much if they haven't practiced and then all of a sudden they've been out all this long a time, and you put them back, you kind of worry about the conditioning aspect, and even if they are active, how much can they play? On top of it, I wouldn't think that even if you got Robert Spillane back in uniform on Sunday against the Browns, that he's going to play 60-something snaps unless you can, unless it becomes an emergency type situation there. But to have him back would be kind of huge, as you kind of said in that last podcast, kind of mix and match the Avery Williamsons, the Vince Williams, and the Robert Spillanes. Along with who knows, maybe a little bit of Marcus Allen on some dimes still, with especially with Joe Hayden set to miss this game as well too there. So we'll keep our eye out for that. The other guys that you mentioned, Terrell Edmonds with the shoulder, Chris Boswell with the groin. I guess we'll see. Mike Tomlin sounded pretty optimistic about it, but we've come out of Mike Tomlin press conferences before on a Wednesday and said, count on this guy playing, and he ends up not playing there. So we'll have to see what the Wednesday injury report says in terms of those guys. As far as the COVID guys, Joe Hayden, Eric Ebron, Cassius Marsh. Once again, it sounds like maybe there's obviously based on what we know and close contact and all like that they'll get Eric Ebron back and Cassius Marsh back in practice in some way, shape, or form this week, and that both will be available to potentially play on Sunday against the Browns. Joe Hayden, I don't think so.
Right. With Ebron and Marsh, I mean, if they don't test positive, they continue to test negative, they will play against the Browns Sunday night, but there's no guarantee they're going to keep testing negative, because they were literally in a house with somebody who was positive for COVID. So there's a decent chance those guys could get could contract the virus as well. In terms of Spillane should play. I think there'll be a rotation. Avery Williamson, the way he talked in an interview with a fan yesterday, basically confirmed Spillane's going to return and going to play. Does not know about rotations and things like that. I imagine there'll be a rotation. It's interesting with Filer what his role may be or really what it might not be. I don't expect Filer to start at left guard. I think Dawson's going to continue to man that spot. The only question would be, would Filer potentially come in at right tackle to replace a core for? I doubt that. I'm not going to totally discount it, but I do doubt it. So I think Filer's going to be really on the bench, as you mentioned, maybe the 6 offensive linemen this weekend.
That's the way I would use him, and you're damn right I'd use him that way too. I would get him into the game because look, they're probably not going to have Radar up, a second week in a row. It's kind of hard, barring something happen with Ebron again, staying on the COVID list or something like that. It's hard to imagine from where we sit right now any elevations happening right now. But it's still early in the week here. Now, specifically, boy, Mike Tomlin's such a wordsmith, is he not? If only I could speak half as good or a quarter as good as Mike Tomlin does. Imagine how good this podcast would be and my writing would be. But kind of ask specifically about Filer and all like that, and really the guys returning overall. Sure made it sound like Kevin Dotson's going to remain there at left guard. I think, quote unquote, but we also have some guys who are getting clearance to work this week, and that work this week may produce an opportunity for them. Leaves it open-ended there, right? He goes on to say Robert Spillane is one significant one, and Matt Filer is another significant one. And so the inclusion, this is where he gets so damn crafty with the commas. He's my comma hero. Comma, or the potential of inclusion, comma, of those guys. No, he didn't actually say comma, but I think people get that. The potential of inclusion, comma, of those guys is exciting, but it also creates, or comma, but it also creates some challenges from a decision-making standpoint because we just feel like we've got some options. Go.
Yeah, I mean, that answer didn't really tip the hand too much because it's qualified 84 times the way that Tomlin does it. But just based on the play, I think Dotson's going to be the starting left guard.
Yeah, but if Filer was going to come back and start, I don't think Mike Tomlin would have had an issue saying, we can't wait to get Mike Filer back in there at left guard.
Well, I don't think Tomlin's even working under the assumption that Filer's going to be ready because he was asked about that later and said, I don't even know if Filer's going to be there yet. So until we get to that point, I'm not even entertaining any idea. So, I think he's just, viewing Filer's return as a bonus.
All right, but I mean, we'll see. And just because if Filer gets back to practicing this week doesn't mean he'll be activated. Because
right. I
had the 21-day window.
Right. And I know we had talked in our group DM last night about potential inactives, assuming that Filer, Spillane, Marsh, Ebron all return. We basically came up with
save that for the back. Save it for when we talk about the other bit of news related to Dobbs here, because I think all that machinates together, right?
Okay. Well, you want to talk about Dobbs right now?
All right,
and
go
his
ahead.
Comments on Josh Dobbs. And again, Tomlin's been asked several times this week about would you entertain the possibility of having Dobbs active, maintaining a role the way that he did in the Week 17 game against Cleveland. Let me try to pull up the quote here. I don't know if you have it offhand. Can't find the quote here. Actually, okay, he says, we're going to have that discussion as an offensive staff in terms of being asked if Dobbs would be available for the wildcard game. We meet a little bit this afternoon. It was good to have both guys in the stadium. Both guys helped their cause. Neither guy hurt their cause. We talked openly about what Josh Dobbs brings that is a little bit different, that maybe levels the playing field and creates things to work on, and think about that as an asset to him. We will ponder those possibilities and make an appropriate decision that best benefits us. So we'll see. I mean, I think that if Dobbs is active, you're going to have all three quarterbacks active. I don't think Rudolph's going to become inactive to have Dobbs available in this game. Just haven't done it the entire season. So the question is, can you get all three quarterbacks active and still have an inactive list that works for you?
My new favorite word is machinate. Have you figured that out yet?
All right. That word of the day calendar you have?
Huh?
That's
I'm not all that fascinated by the English language, nor do I have a firm grasp of it. So when I get a hold of things that I like fungible and machinate, I usually run them into the ground. So I just was going to prepare you for that. Back to the Dobbs thing here. You and I talked the other day. We kind of like that little wrinkle there. Obviously, how much are you going to use that in a playoff game, especially with a guy like, how many instances do we have in the past of Ben Roethlisberger running on and off the field in certain scenarios, right? It just he's not one to come off the field. We've seen Phillip Rivers do that with Jacoby Brissett, right? And I think it's worked out pretty decent for them at times, especially if you get in a situation where maybe you want a quarterback sneak and all like that. You don't want Roethlisberger to take the hit on it, okay? All that said, I think Mike Tomlin has done a great job ever since the end of the last game of not tipping his hand, and they used. I think Dobbs played 9 snaps. I think he ran twice. I think he handed it off 2 times, and then I think he had 5, I guess, quote unquote pass attempts in the game.
2 yards.
In total there. I think he's done a good job of not tipping his hand. I think Kevin Stefanski even said a couple of days ago in his press conference that, yeah, look, that's something that we got to now prepare for now. And the more that you make a team prepare for, during a week when they're having to prepare for a lot, especially in a week where they're probably not going to have a lot of time to prepare, the more you stretch them. So at this point, I don't know which way it's going to go, but I know you, and Matthew Marksey, the great Matthew Marksey, by the way, had a nice little, kind of trying to figure out a way that we can make this inactive, the game day 48-man roster work. And I think you could potentially do it. The question is do you not want to dress a ninth linebacker or or one extra defensive back? And I think that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah. So can we go through the inactive list that we had kind of come up with as
Sure.
something that's viable? Okay. So the 5 inactives would be Isaiah Buggs, Antoine Brooks, Anthony McFarland, Danny Isadora, and Cassius Marsh. In this scenario, Tigre Skills will get released with Spillane coming back as well. So that gives you 48 active, 5 inactive, and that's your list there. And yeah, the biggest problem with that would be only having 8 linebackers, specifically 3 outside linebackers available to you, which is generally 1 light. They did play with 3 last week in the Browns game because they really didn't have much of any other choice. But that would be the 5: Buggs, Brooks, McFarland, Isadora, and Marsh, which makes a lot of sense to me. I think that works.
Now, you would still have 4 outside linebackers.
You would?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Highsmith, Watt, Adaney, and Elliott.
Right.
Right.
And
Okay.
and I'm not so much who do you want on special teams, Elliott or Marsh?
Not Elliott. I don't really like Elliott on special teams.
Right. So why wouldn't you? My inactive list would have Marsh active and Elliott inactive.
I like that better.
Okay, that's one. Obviously, let's go through it here. 1 running back needs to be inactive more than likely because you're going to dress 3 plus the fullback in Watt. So that would logically, being as how Jalen Samuels has pictures on somebody, it would probably make Anthony McFarland inactive.
Yeah, that's been the way it's been when that backfield's been healthy. McFarland's been the odd man out.
All right, so we have McFarland, we have Elliott inactive. One of the either Carlos Davis or Buggs can sit down, and you still dress the five defensive linemen, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, so that's 3 inactives we have. How many offensive linemen total do they have right now?
Including Filer?
If Filer's activated though, who comes off?
Well, Isadora would be inactive.
No, I'm talking about I'm talking about the roster spot because he's not on the 53-man roster right now.
Yeah, I don't know if we got that far in our conversation. I know Scales is going for Spillane. I don't know who's going for Filer.
All right, somebody would have to go.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Especially, you can make it Scales for Isadora, or you can Scales for Filer, or Scales for Spillane. But what if you got both Spillane and Filer back this week?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. We didn't work that out, I guess, in the group chat. So that's a good point.
So, and didn't we have Isadora somebody as an inactive?
Well, yeah, Isadora was an inactive. So even if you released Isadora for Filer, you're still in an active spot that you have to occupy.
Right, and who would you? Let's do this. Who would your 8 dressed offensive linemen be? Obviously, your 5 starters, which would include Okorafor. J.C. Hassenauer would be 6. Hubbard would be 7.
Hubbard?
Not Hubbard. Hawkins.
Hubbard. Yeah, Hawkins. And then Filer.
And then either Filer or Isadora.
Right. Well, assuming Filer's activated in this scenario.
Right.
In theory, you don't have to activate Filer if you're not going to really play him.
Then but I'm talking about the roster spot though. You're going to need that roster spot though. So it's if you activated Filer from IR, he's probably going to take the spot of a offensive lineman, so you're going to have to cut an offensive lineman.
Right, which would be Danny Isadora.
Right.
But then you'd have to fill Lisa Dora's inactive spot now with somebody else.
Right. I guess that's the long way of going over my shoulder there to get us back to that point that I don't think we worked out in our group chat.
All right, so we'll come back. We'll go back to the drawing board. Come back maybe Friday. I know you'll have your inactive prediction post on Saturday, I'm guessing, after 4 p.m. And kind of that'll be interesting to see what we come up with finally.
Boy, we are the kings of the meaningless minutia.
If you want to talk about Omar Khan and inactive lists, you've come to the right place.
Okay, do you think they A, should and B, will dress Dobbs?
Initially, a couple days ago, I didn't think that they would, but the more I think about it and hearing some of Tomlin's comments, it seemed at least generally receptive to it, even though it's still a little vague. I think they do. I think they try to find a way to get Dobbs in there, even if it's for a 3rd and 1 situation or some specialty moment, considering how bad this team has been running the football in general and how bad they've been in those short yardage areas. Yeah, I think they find a way to do it.
I opened up a couple of days ago thinking that might be the case, but now the further I get away from it, I'm thinking that they might not, because the whole Roethlisberger, is Roethlisberger really going to come off the field for 9 plays a game?
Well, I don't think it'll be 9, and that was the point I made on Monday's show, is do you want to take your Hall of Fame quarterback off the field? But it may be
5?
2 or 3. Yeah, even less than that. It may just be a 3rd and 1, a goal line type play. I mean, it may literally just be 2 or 3 plays. I don't think it'll be 9.
Is it worth not dressing a special teams guy for that? So
given that you'd be using Dobbs in probably some really important situation, I think you could justify it, even if it's just 2-3 snaps. If that's coming on 3rd and 1 or 2nd and goal, that probably outweighs the backup R4 guy on kickoff.
So if Kevin Stefanski's listened to this podcast, we don't know. We'll see. So you better prepare for it.
Sorry, Kevin. Well, you're preparing for it, but also you're not, because you're not coaching in this game. Anyway, Mike Tomlin, anything else Tomlin had to say that caught your attention, Dave?
Let me pull the transcript back up here.
Said he's comfortable with Matthew Wright.
Yeah, that.
But he did say we'll support him in kickoff coverage. So
yeah, that was the part that got me there. In other words, he can't kick it very deep, so we'll have to run our butts down there and go get it. Let's see. I thought the whole body. I feel kind of vindicated. Talking about giving Kevin Radar praise right out of the chute there. I thought that was good there, even though we don't, and I thought the other interesting thing was him talking about the body type on special teams. That kind of minutia interested me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talking about the lack of inside linebackers, forced tight ends to play more coverage units. You got Vance on kick return team, you got Rader running down punts and kicks, and he did a good job. 3 special teams tackles, and I didn't know that was part of his skill set, but as little as that game meant for the Steelers overall Sunday, it meant very little to them. It meant a lot to guys like Kevin Rader making his NFL debut.
As much as an advantage that the Steelers perceive to have now at this point due to what's happened, COVID. I mean, look, lines just don't move by 3 full points during a playoff week unless something kind of big happens, and that obviously has with the Browns, right? The worst thing now obviously there's no such thing as trap game in the NFL, especially in playoff time, and any given Sunday still reigns supreme, because look, the line is just public perception. Basically, it's money perception as far as this thing goes. The last thing that you want to do on Sunday is to have some sort of thing happen on special teams that block punt, return, what have you, that puts 7 points on the board for the other team. That's a good way to get yourself beat in a game that you probably should win.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about details and being buttoned up and not making that one mistake that's going to cost you a game and end your season.
All right, who would be the head coach if something happened to Mike Tomlin? Danny Smith forever?
Danny Smith should be the head coach of every team. Now, Tomlin was asked that, and he declined to give an answer. He did say the team has a plan in place if that, were to ever happen. My guess would be Terrell Austin. I think Austin would be almost a slam dunk choice.
Yeah, John Mitchell's still hanging around there, right?
Yeah, he's still the assistant head coach, but I know he's not really involved in day-to-day stuff too much. He's kind of more a player liaison, is what Tomlin said a couple of years back. So I think Austin, was hired to be kind of the replay guy, Tomlin's right-hand man on game day. Tomlin made those references to Austin being a head coach interviewee a couple of years back and kind of said he has all those sort of traits that you look for. So I think Austin probably would be the guy.
Here's to us never finding out for sure.
Here. Although you posted the clip of Tomlin Stefanski shaking hands into the game yesterday.
Well, I did that because there's been on other, Twitter too, but in Reddit and other social networks, people trying to make a big deal out of Tomlin being, and I've been posting that stuff more so from the aspect that look how masked up those guys are,
And the good news is it seems like, even those short moments don't generally transmit the virus. You have to be around someone for, I think they say 15 minutes for there to be a high likelihood of the virus being transmitted.
Right. And once again, everybody's masked up pretty good in all video and stills that I have from the game the other day against the Browns there.
Yeah. Anything else from Tomlin? That was about it for me on Tomlin.
Yeah, I think we got the bulk of it there. We'll obviously see how the injury report plays out here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And once again, we're sitting here looking at the Twitter machine, waiting for news to see what happens with Filer and Spillane.
All right, Dave, reviewing the Browns tape from this past Sunday. Anything stick out to you, positive, negatively, that you want to discuss?
You got to get better filling those run gaps, and you better get better tackling on defensive side of football, and you better have a better understanding and game plan of keeping a guy like Baker Mayfield inside the pocket. I think Mike Tomlin said as much, kind of open up that press conference on Tuesday. The biggest aspect to me in that game was the failure on some run fills and the tackling, and then you had about 3 key plays where you let Baker, or at least 2 of them, where Baker was able to get outside of containment there. He crushed you for 40 something yards, right, on one of those, and then another one was the conversion at the end of the game, which, I mean, that like it or not, that was the last big play of the game, and if you get a stop there, who knows what happens after that there. So something that we've talked about from Mayfield for the last several games, previewing them over the years here, last couple of years, was talking about you gotta make that guy make the plays within the pocket with his arm, not let him make the plays with his arm outside of the pocket, or as we saw with his legs. And just the tackling and look, Nick Chubb's still gonna be Nick Chubb without Joe Bitonio in there, and they're still gonna have some run, like it or not. They are still going to have run success against the Steelers, I think, on Sunday at Heinz Field in a wild card game. You've just got to limit that stuff and not let the home runs happen like what happened in the game. And then hopefully you have a lead where they have to get away from running the football later in the game.
Agreed. I'm coming away from this game with 2 main issues and concerns with the Browns offense, even knowing their COVID situation. Obviously the run game, Nick Chubb, which I think you put that really well. Nick Chubb's still going to be Nick Chubb regardless of who's blocking for him or not. And then B, one thing I noticed, and I'm betting the Browns continue to lean on this heavily, maybe even more so Sunday night, just because they're not able to practice and they're going to go with things they know that work. The Browns went, and this is like an old Patriots thing, they went a lot of heavy personnel, 12, 13 personnel, multiple tight ends on the field, but they spread the field out. They would go empty out of that and force Pittsburgh to stay in their base defense and have their linebackers cover tight ends and even receivers sometimes by shifting Landry to the slot, and really just had a lot of success. On their 9 pass attempts out of empty, which almost all that came out of 12 or 13 personnel, the Browns went 7-9 for 72 yards and 4 first downs. And Pittsburgh really didn't generate much pressure off of that because they were only able to send 4, and they were dropping outside linebackers into coverage. So I'm guessing the Browns continue to play a lot of heavy personnel Sunday. They're going to keep Pittsburgh in base, and they're going to try to get Jarvis Landry on A.V. Williamson or Alex Highsmith or someone else like that, and not do it all the time, but do it in some key situations, especially on 3rd down, that could really cause problems for Pittsburgh.
Especially inside maybe red zone as well, too. We saw T.J. Watt get pushed out to the edge there against the Dallas Cowboys, right?
Right.
And we've seen that more than a few times this year. And how nice is it to not have to worry about T.J. Watt rushing you? I'd much rather have T.J. Watt in coverage if I'm opposing offense than I would him coming after my tackle.
Right.
Right.
And the Browns are able to dictate some of that stuff by basically forcing these outside linebackers to drop. And that's a great way to negate T.J. Watt because he can't hit you if he's dropping backwards in the coverage.
Right, and we know that they're more than likely going to have my other T-Rex tight end back this week as well too. So they're going to have a plethora of tight ends to choose from when it comes to going a more heavy package there. And look, as good as one thing that stuck out, Highsmith, Ragdoll, and Njoku around, but it still doesn't mean that they can't spread. You'll put that personnel grouping out on the field, and then, like you said, spread it out. So I think that was great analysis that you did on that, and I think if the Steelers better have an answer for it, because that can, in addition to having to focus on stopping the running game, which they can obviously run out of that heavy personnel grouping.
Right.
That could be a big difference. That's where some potential chunk plays can come from them. I think if you go up against them in those kind of personnel groupings and they spread you out like that, and you only give up, 6, 7, 8 yards, and maybe 1 third down or 2 in a game, I think you've come out a huge positive there. But what's the best way to kind of defense that? When you have a heavy package out there. Just personnel?
Yeah, I mean, you have to stay in your base because you that's run personnel, so you can't assume that, okay, they're going to spread things out, so we'll go nickel. I think one thing Pittsburgh did wrong was they played almost exclusively too high out of it. Sometimes it was man coverage, sometimes it was cover 2 zone coverage, but when you're playing that too high look, you're really they're throwing it short, first of all, and you're really kind of stressing your linebackers to cover these guys. So I think if you play more single high, there was one example where they played cover 1 out of that empty, heavy look, and it was a successful play for the Steelers defense. So I think you got to play more single high. That limits your coverage options, unfortunately, but I think you got to play more single high in those moments. Right,
and we've seen Baker make some mistakes against some single highs, I think. Right, especially that first game didn't Minka get him on a robber?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you want to force him into some tighter window throws.
You want to force him into tighter window throws, and you want him to have to make the throws down the football field to beat you over the top. And look, he was able to hit the Steelers one over top Justin Lane in that game Sunday in Cleveland there. But you have to make Baker Mayfield win this game with this arm, plain and simple. That's the game. That's the strategy in here, I think.
What is your level of confidence for just evaluation of Justin Lane? Because he's still going to be playing in dime on Sunday, we presume. I know our Owen Straley was pretty critical of Lane's performance against the Browns. I think he was right in that assessment. Is there a concern there about Lane getting beat deep in a critical moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Double move. That's usually when those guys get a little bit too aggressive and all. Now, granted, though, we don't have a lot of tape on him still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, it's hard. It's hard to give an overarching report on him, but from what we have seen, both preseason from last year and so far this season, it hasn't been great with him. And yeah, he's gotten some experience, but I would worry about him getting beat on a double move more than anything else.
And gave up that big play, that big 40-yarder to Higgins, which wasn't even a double move. Higgins just kind of stemmed the route, and Lane turned around wrong, and just a really bad rep for him there.
It's confusing when you look at that at the All-22 of how that may have actually happened.
Yeah, Lane shouldn't have gotten beat as bad as he did on that play. All right, Dave, anything else from the All-22 that you watched? You want to talk about anything on the Steelers' offensive side of the football?
I think it's hard to draw any hard conclusions of what they did offensively, the Steelers, right? I mean,
anything different about Mason? Any different evaluation of Mason the second time through?
Not anything more than what we already talked about. I mean, I think he did a good job, obviously, as we said, at pushing the football down the field. There were a couple throws where I thought, and this is becoming an MO on him a little bit too, is understanding the coverages right at the snap and knowing that sometimes that first read of that guy coming across the middle, knowing where you are at on the football field in down and distance situations, I think sometimes he gets caught up in being in the game and not being in the game, if that makes sense. Because there was one instance, I think 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 6, where he had a wide open, I think Juju coming across the field, that at worst you get the first down in that situation.
And he took a sack on the play, if that's the one you're referring to.
I believe so.
Yeah, and that's in my sack breakdown that I'll go up probably tomorrow sometime. Yeah, there's still some processing stuff. There was some good, some bad. I might have come away feeling a little bit worse about it after watching the All-22 than what I saw live, but obviously he did push the ball downfield and made some big chunk plays and big throws downfield.
All right, what was the biggest concerning thing from him then?
Just some processing, which was a little bit slow, and then just overall pocket movement, awareness, dropping his eye sometimes too much whenever that first or second read isn't there. Still those things he has to work on.
Right.
Wrote about Chase Claypool and his squirt release, which is the unfortunate
phrasing.
That's what it's called. I didn't come up with it. That's just what it's called. I don't know who came up with it, but that is the squirt release where you sell an outside stem to be able to win inside on a slant, and Claypool did that on his actually first catch of the game, the first third down on Sunday. So that was nice to see Claypool showing some more different techniques and advanced ways to win, beat inside leverage, and make a play.
And Chase Claypool ended the season with the most We're just a blog, all right? We're just a blog. Chase Claypool ended the regular season with the most receiving defensive pass interference yards drawn across the league. Now, he was second overall in total defensive pass interference numbers drawn in 8. Mike Williams got a few of those last couple of weeks there. He had 9. Claypool had 8. Claypool led the league in defensive pass interference yardage drawn. And then PFF's got, it's a weird flex by them. Claypool led the league in deep pass interference penalties drawn. I don't know. That's a weird flex.
Very specific.
Yeah, that's okay. I get it. Why not just say he led the league? Why not flex Claypool led the league in pass interference yardage drawn?
That seems more to the point.
So I don't get that. But Claypool was second in total drawn DPIs and first in the league in DPI yardage drawn. But after all, we need to quantify that as we are just a blog.
That is never going to get old. Yeah, they definitely ran the Flacco offense at some points this year where they just threw it deep and they were hoping for either a big catch or a flag. And we'll see if that'll be the game plan. We'll see what the Browns secondary looks like on Sunday. I don't know for sure if guys like Sendejo and Ward and Kevin Johnson are going to be available to them. I don't know if that's been determined or if we'll be waiting until the 11th hour for that news, but that'll be important to watch.
All right, anything else stick out from you offensively other than this team still can't run? And I mean, all the things. Look, it's going to – here's the thing, and you and I think we talked about this on the Facebook or on the YouTube Live the other night, Monday night there, talking about if you go back and look up over time in wild card week winners, and I assume it would go on into the playoffs deeper as well too, not just a wild card round, but man, you better have a pretty decent intended air yards down the field and a completed air yard distance once you get into the playoffs here moving forward. So the catch short, run long. The Steelers are not going to make a run to the Super Bowl they might get away with it once in the playoffs with having an intended air yard distance of like, say, 6.0 or less and a completed air yards distance less than that. Maybe you win one game that way, but you're not going to make a run to the playoffs without pushing the football down the field. End of story, comma, period, exclamation point, 11111.
All the punctuation there. Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to sustain that without getting a vertical pass game, without having some semblance of a run game. Two areas where this offense has struggled mightily this season. So I agree with you there. By the way, some quick news from Adam Schefter says tests on the rest of the Browns players came back negative this morning. Says as long as there's no more positive tests on the night's game will still be played as scheduled. And Kevin Stefanski says the Browns will not be in the facility today, so they will do a 1 p.m. virtual walkthrough.
And Adam Schefter says as long as there is no more positive tests, Sunday night's Browns-Steelers game will be played as scheduled. Issue arises if there are more positives. So far, so good. So what when it comes to the Browns on a Wednesday morning? What would you rather have, a running game or the ability to push the football down the field on Sunday against the Browns?
You're making me choose here. I'll go with the vertical pass game to get those big chunk plays, but I think it's hard to do it without a semblance of either, because if you can't run it at all, it's hard to close out those games without running the football.
And once again, if you can't run and you're having to push the football down the field, you better score some points too, because that's the only thing that's going to lead to Ben Roethlisberger not dropping back 45 times in a game. And at least getting a little bit of a lead affords you the opportunity to run poorly more later in the game, which helps kill some clock time. So I guess we kind of lowered our standards here. We are hoping for the Steelers to be able to run poorly a lot late on Sunday, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there you go. Good way to phrase it. All right, Dave, anything else from this game? I think it kind of wraps up everything I had to note.
We'll obviously have more on Friday as we preview this game, but I mean, you've faced this team 3 times already, and just recently, most recently in Week 17. I don't think that you and I are going to have a eureka moment here in the next couple of days. But within that, hopefully, we're going to have our buddy Scott Petrak on Friday. He can't commit to us yet because of the Browns' scheduling right now is still up in the air. But I've been in conversation with him, and we hope to have him on the Friday show for another preview of this game from the Browns' point of view.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Well, we got a lot in today, didn't we?
Yeah, you said we have some good ones.
And a lot of minutia in this one as well, too. Let's see here. History for some optimism. This one from Darren. Hey guys, first time emailing. Love the show. Hooray. Good for you, Darren. Found y'all 2 years ago when I first started listening to the podcast at work. You were the third Steelers podcast I found, and the first 2 I couldn't listen to for 5 minutes each. I love the 2-hour shows and wish you did 3 shows a week in the off season. I've learned so much about the nuances of football, and I've been a Steelers fan for 45 years. Wow, I think he's probably about my age or older there. Let's see. Anyway, my point of this is I watched the 2009 opener against Tennessee on Saturday on Game Pass. Another good for you, Darren. Like people that tell me that they get into the tape and then they go back and watch older games. Let's see. Ben was throwing down the field more and moving better, obviously, but the running game was terrible. And they had Parker, Mendenhall, and Moore. After the third time failing on third and short, the stat was shown that the Steelers were the worst 3rd and 4th and 1 team in football in 2008, and they won the Super Bowl. So my optimistic self is hoping history repeats itself this year. Love you guys, and thanks for a fantastic podcast to get me through work. FYI, Pittsburgh native living in North Carolina now. Kevin Radar went to my high school 25 years after me, of course. What a great email from Darren. Darren, yeah. if we could get more emails like like that, fantastic. Now I'm going to have to go now. He's forced me to go and pull up that game to get that graphic. So your thoughts on his optimism there?
A very interesting stat. I appreciate bringing some optimism. Yeah, that O-line back then wasn't nearly as good, so it doesn't surprise me they struggled as much in those situations, because you think today's offense line would be better, but hopefully you can recreate that same magic. Obviously, you still have Ben, you still have a great defense. It takes the football away, and those are the core pieces you need to make a Super Bowl run. You need a great quarterback. You need a defense that's aggressive, attacking, ball hawking, and Pittsburgh has both of those things.
And I think to put into, people are going to say, what are our thoughts and chances of the Steelers, in the playoffs now? And I think we've put it out there. They have a defense good enough to make a run to the championship. How Ben Roethlisberger does pushing the football down the field, they're going to go as far. I know it sounds like a cliche, but they're going to go as far as Ben Roethlisberger will carry him. Now, when it gets to the running game, they might not have to have a solid running game. But as I've said, and to me, it's very, very important now. Yeah, I'm not so much concerned about yards per carry as I am successful run situations. You better have 4 yards more times than not on 1st and 10 when you run the football. And then as Darren points out here, the short yardage thing, man, you're going to have to have some better semblance of getting short yardage, because that's going to be a lot of the times when you decide to run. And if you get late into games here, can you have some key run successes late in games if you have the lead?
Yeah, I'll even take it a step back, I guess, and say, even if they average 3.2 yards per carry in a game, but they punched it in on 2nd and goal from the 1, and they got a key first down late in the game with the run, and that was the overall average, then I'm happy with that. I mean, it is a low bar, just those key 1 to 3 situational run moments. If they do that, I mean, I'll take it at this point.
Great email, Darren. Appreciate the first-time email. Don't be a stranger there. We need more like that. Our brother Ashley Bright's back, Alex.
Hey,
you've met Ashley before, haven't you?
I met?
Didn't you meet him?
I communicate with Ashley. I'm trying to think. I don't think I have, because he's out west.
Okay. David Alex, famous does Oscar and Felix, Tom and Jerry, Simon and Garfunkel, and Batman and Robin. Can't hold a candle to my favorite duo, Steelers Depot's Dave and Alex. Questions. Boy, he knows how to butter us up, doesn't he? Too much praise going on here. Too much positive, I think, Alex.
No, enjoy it. 2021, new year, new us.
Do you think the Steelers would possibly dress Dobbs over Mason due to Dobbs' potential packages in the game?
No, I don't think they dress him over Mason, but I think it's possible, in becoming more and more likely the more I hear and think about it, that they dress all 3.
I think it is possible. I think we went over that part in the pie. Ashley, hopefully you enjoyed that part of it. I don't think they've addressed Dobbs over Mason. I do not, but I think there is an outside possibility of them dressing all 3 against the Browns this weekend, and then going, obviously if they win, taking it on a week-to-week basis there. Number 2, did not watch much Eagles closely. Did Tyson, this is a good question for you, Alex. Did Tyson Alu outplay Javon Hargrave this year?
He hasn't been quite the same since that MCL injury that still probably bothered him. He's got that big bulky brace on that right knee. Was he as good as Hargrave against the run? I think he was as good, if not a bit better, as a pass rusher, though Hargrave was still better. That's how I break it up.
But overall, I think the short answer is yes. I think Alu did outplay Hargrave.
I don't know if I'd go that far, because I think the run defense was both very good for both guys and about the same, but Hargrave as a pass rusher was better than Alu, and so I think that gives me still a slight edge to Hargrave.
All right, but it was close. It makes you think,
it was close,
right?
A lot closer than I thought it was going to be. He had a great season. Good for him.
Number 3 is there a best practice coverage scheme for tight ends the Steelers could use against the Browns, along with stopping the run and containing Landry? This is the third defensive priority. Who is the third defensive priority in my opinion?
What was the question?
Best practice coverage scheme for tight ends the Steelers could use against the Browns.
The best scheme. You take that, because I'm trying to mull over what would be a good answer for that.
Against multiple tight ends, I mean, I think you've already kind of hit on it. I think you got to go one high and have a safety come down and get involved in that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It just depends how they use them. Are they more of a vertical seam stretcher? Or are they running more stuff underneath, stuff like that? So it's hard to give a blanket answer to that. And there is no magical, we'll run this coverage, take away the tight ends. A lot of it comes down to just personnel. Can your guy match up against this dude that's 6'5", 240, and has the size advantage on you, can you still make a play? So sometimes those things come down to personnel. Like they ran every coverage to stop Gronk back in the day, and nothing worked. It just came down to Gronk
they couldn't run cover one man back then, though.
No, they
can
definitely
run cover
could.
one man now.
Yeah, no, big difference for sure. But I'm just saying, sometimes it comes down to just personnel, and they were doubling Gronk at times, and he was still getting open and making plays. So sometimes it just comes down
they wouldn't put anybody out on him at all.
Yeah, one time they forgot about it. Oh, it was 2015, that week one opener, just left him alone.
Here's the thing. If for somehow on Monday we're talking about a Steelers loss to the Browns, I bet the Browns tight ends have played a role in that.
Yeah, as you said, they got 3 good ones, assuming Brian comes back.
All right, good to hear from you, Ashley. Let's see here. Let's go to our buddy Grant Baker. I know he's followed me on the Twitter machine for a long time. Dave and Alex, long time no talk. Dave, hope all is well and your health prayers as always. Congrats, Alex, on becoming a homeowner. The season had been a whirlwind for sure between Ben coming back, all the COVID drama, 11 straight wins, 3 straight losses, lack of running game, etc., etc. But one thing I feel like will really set us apart from the other teams in the playoffs is Big Ben. I think he will be the true X factor. We all know that Ben is as big of a drama king as they come, and I believe that goes hand in hand with him getting ready to turn it on for one last Super Bowl push this year. When I look at his play over the course of the season with getting the ball out quickly and a short passing game, it seems like he was preserving his body / health for this exact moment. While it might not be the Big Ben of old, I think we will see Ben extend plays, find open receivers after plays break down, and maybe a few scrambles now that here in the playoffs, now that it's do or die. This team is hungry for another championship, and Ben has a lot to prove to his doubters. His documentary before the season was evidence of that. Here's hoping that this will be Pittsburgh's season. The old cowboy can ride off into the sunset with one more Super Bowl ring. Thank you for all you and your team do week in and week out, providing Steelers Nation hands down best content out there. Your minutia has become daily part of my weekly routine, and even my wife now recognizes both your voices playing from my iPhone speakers 3 times a week. God help her. Dave, I'm a desert dweller like you now, so if in your travels you're passing through Scottsdale, Arizona, let me know, and you're always I will be back in Scottsdale, probably Arizona, maybe, who knows, maybe this summer as well there. So what a great email there. Thoughts on his optimism about Big Ben, the gunslinger?
Yeah, I'm loving all the optimism today. God, if they lose to the Browns, that's going to go away quickly. Fire everybody. But no, this is great.
The old cowboy.
Yeah, I love that phrase, and certainly, Ben is as competitive as anyone on this team in the NFL. And so, I think we'll hopefully get Ben's best. They certainly need it, but not to be the Debbie Downer here, but in the playoffs, you got almost every single playoff team with a really good quarterback. Maybe some not as good as Ben, some better than Ben, but every team is sitting here in the playoffs saying we got Josh Allen, we got Mahomes, we got whoever, and we feel pretty confident about having that guy.
Grant's an executive chef, too. That's a guy after your own heart right there. Alex, you're a little bit of a, I don't know, is foodie a right word for you, Alex?
I don't think it is. I don't think I just like eating food that I don't have to cook and prepare and someone makes for me.
I like to eat food that I do cook. That's Grant is executive chef. Grant, Great Wolf Lodge, I think in Arizona. Would they let someone like me in there? If so, maybe I'll come see you here over the summer here. Let's see what else do we have. We got some great emails today, don't we? I told you we did. Some guys that have been following us for a long time on top of it. Let's see. Wondering if you could touch on if you'd consider replacing Chooks with Filer in case KD stays at left guard. Okay, so this is from Noel West. Basically wants to know if we consider putting Filer in at right tackle there in place of Chooks if Dotson stays at left guard. You take that.
No, we've discussed this a couple times. I wouldn't hate the idea. I understand the merit of it. Would I do it? Probably not.
I probably wouldn't either. Jerry Thrash writes in, Dave and Alex, penalties and playoffs. I wrote earlier in the season about procedure penalties in the game against the Eagles. While I did catalog the plays, I thought maybe not to drag you guys down with the spilled milk. However, I still worry about the potential for simpleton-like penalties jumping up in these playoffs to bite the Steelers really hard at the wrong times, especially given the repeated inept job that we've seen from officiating throughout the season. See also Ola being taken down to the mat for a 3 count. Yeah, I got that up on the Twitter machine there. That aside, and in the spirit of Dave's theory that one side of the ball will have to ball at the other at some point, outball the other at some point in the playoffs, would you rather, provided the hypothetical matchups? A, the defense have to bail out the team against the Chiefs, given that we anticipate that the offense would have to score to keep up with them. But what happens if the O just doesn't have that big a day? Or B, the offense have to bail out the team against the Ravens based on our past against the Ravens and the familiarity that they have with being able to move the ball difficult on us many times. Thank you again, and the Steelers Depot team. Keep up the great. Basically, in so many words, would you rather have the defense bail the team out against the Chiefs, or the offense bail out the team against the Ravens? That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, neither's ideal.
Jerry's out from California as well, too. What's up with all these West Coasters out here being the ones getting into good questions today?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer to that. I mean, whatever it takes to win is the mentality. I think it goes back to the point, though, Dave, that you've made, that generally in these games, one side is going to have to pick up the other in one of these, hopefully, 4 games, whether that's the offense picking up the defense in one particular game or vice versa. That's generally how a playoff run goes sometimes.
Jerry, I don't know what the right answer is here either. My gut tells me that the defense having to come up more big against the Chiefs is the right answer, because of the sheer fact we've seen this defense play Lamar Jackson fairly okay in the past. Does that make sense, Alex?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That Chiefs down the field passing attack scares the living hell out of me. So I would lean towards the defense having to bail out the team against the Chiefs. Good question. Let's see here. Man, I know I've got another couple of good ones in here somewhere. Jonathan Mason, I'm on the fence with the Dobbs package, but do like the wrinkle on this offense if they made him active. Who are the most likely inactives? I think we answered that one. Alex, don't forget to remind Dave that it's bachelor season. Oh, Christ.
Yeah, did you watch Monday? It's
no, I did not watch.
Really good season.
Who is it?
Matt James. He was a former receiver at Wake Forest, so there's a good football tie-in for you.
You're watching it, aren't you?
I am.
Oh, Christ.
Right after our live stream. Bachelor comes on.
Alan Balama writes in, love the show. If Omar Khan leaves Pittsburgh because the general manager in Houston, which we've established probably isn't going to happen now, how does that affect the Steelers offseason with the signing of their players and free agents? He's from, where's Edinburgh, PA? Is that close to you, Alex?
Edinburgh? I think I drove through
Ebensburg. Ebens. I pronounced it wrong. Ebensburg.
I think I drove through Ebensburg on a trip this year. But it's out east of me, I think, if I'm remembering the right place.
How does it affect the Steelers' offseason with the signing of their players and other free? It really doesn't, Alan. I mean, Omar's great contract, but look, if a fanboy like me can get pretty good at managing the Steelers' cap and writing up these contract projections, I would have to think that it's learnable, it's just so many. Here's the hardest part. I think it is when studying the cap, specifically with the Steelers and the way they do business and everything that goes along with it. It's the planning aspect. It's the ability to project the three years out. Mm-hmm. To me, that's kind of the hardest thing to do, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's certainly something that can be learned. Obviously, it's a moot point now. I assume this email had come in a couple of days before the Texans made their hire official. That's not won't be Omar Khan. But I think the biggest concern would have been who would replace him, and there really wasn't a great in-house guy to do that, especially in a difficult year like this one.
Mary writes in, hey, y'all, not sure if your team should this should go to, but I saw that the game Sunday is going to be streaming for free on Peacock in case you want to share with the readers. I guess cord cutters might need that, right?
Yeah, it didn't get to Nickelodeon primetime slot. That goes to the Bears.
Thank God. Oh, let's see here. Boy, so many great emails here. Sean and Kim. Sean is after my own heart here, Alex. NEA for AFC playoffs. Oh Lord, this is like porn. Hi guys, just out of curiosity, what is the adjusted net yards per passing attempt for each of the 7 AFC teams in the playoffs, both offense and defense? Also, statistically on paper, who are the top 2 teams with these stats, offense and defense? You guys are the best at what you do. Keep up the great work and love the 2-hour podcast. I put that together on the Twitter machine here. People know how to get emails read, don't they?
Yeah, that is the key. He put that in the subject title. Dave is going to open it. He's going to read it. He's going to hang it on the refrigerator. I don't know the stats. I don't know if I saw that.
I do. Teacher. I do. Here is the let's see, I have it on the Twitter machine, of all the playoff teams and their adjusted offensive and defensive. Let's start here with the top 2 defensive or top 3 defensive teams from a adjusted net yards per passing attempt number. Rams were number 1 at 4.6. The Steelers number 2 at 4.7. The Washington football team, we talked about their defense several weeks ago, did we not, Alex?
Mm-hmm. Very good defense.
4.8. Those are your top 3. Man, teams that have that 6.0 or number better or higher are teams that you kind of wonder about. Can they really make the run? Included in those are the Green Bay Packers, 6.1. The Chiefs, 6.2. These are defensive numbers. The Browns, 6.6. The Seahawks, 6.1. The Titans, 6.9. Logic tells you that those teams can't win the Super Bowl, Alex. And that, once again, that includes the Packers and the Chiefs. This is on tape now that the Packers and the Chiefs might struggle to win a Super Bowl because of their defense. How do you feel about that?
It's reasonable. It's not just logic. It's the history, right?
It's the history of the stat, right?
Yeah,
right.
It's the history.
And history can be, and history obviously is just that, right?
Yeah. History is just that. I mean, it can be broken and numbers can adjust, but that is longstanding history, and it there's correlation between that too. It's not just just happenstance. So yeah, I think that's a really important number to have, and it bodes well for Pittsburgh.
Would this be a huge win for the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat this year if the Chiefs and or the Packers? I guess it's a possibility both those teams make it to the Super Bowl and play each other there. Would it be assuming they don't? Would it be a huge victory for the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat this year if the Chiefs do not win the Super Bowl?
If their defense has struggled and that was the reason why they lost, potentially, yeah, I think it would be huge. If neither number 1 seed won at all, then I think you can certainly look at that stat and explain that as the reason why.
All right, people file that away now. If for some reason the Chiefs get knocked out and or if the Packers get knocked out, because both those 2 teams, if you want to look at top offensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, the Packers 8.9. That just seems way away from the Steelers. The Chiefs 8.2. Those are your top 2 teams there. If you're scoring at home, the Steelers finished the regular season thanks to Mason Rudolph. Sounds kind of strange saying that.
Usually there's sarcasm following that.
Right, there is none. 6.3. It would have been a tick lower had Mason Rudolph not played the way he played during the regular season finale there. Teams that had a differential adjusted net yards per passing attempt differential, meaning their offense was better than their defense by 1.0 or more. It's a very important stat. There are 7 teams. Those teams are the Packers, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Saints, the Buccaneers, the Rams, and the Steelers. One of those, I'm going to go out on a limb here, okay? I'm going to go out on a huge limb here. One of those 7 teams are going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, could certainly be. And all those teams obviously made the playoffs. So that shows the importance of the stat. If you want to be a playoff team, have a +1 differential.
Well, this is stats related only to teams.
Only to playoff teams. Were there any teams that were +1 that didn't make the playoffs?
I think so, but you told me I was not made aware that would be a question on this test.
Okay.
Here,
I think, either way, I like your hypothesis. One of those 7.
Now, here's the thing: the teams that finished the playoffs with 23 or more sacks on the season.
Turnovers.
Yep, the Chiefs did not make that list.
Didn't. Okay.
Interesting. That's the Alex Kozora stat, if you will.
And the other playoff team, what teams did make the list, I guess is how I should ask this question.
Why'd you have to?
Pittsburgh did.
Why'd you have to?
Well, you had the stat the other day before. I'm asking a lot of pop quizzes. The Steelers obviously made it. And there were a couple other teams like the Saints, I think, that were right on the bubble. The Dolphins were on the bubble, but obviously they didn't make the playoffs, so that's a non-issue now. The Chiefs didn't make it, so that's interesting.
Teacher.
All right, calling on Dave.
Here are your takeaways, top to bottom of the playoff teams total. 27 for the Steelers, 26 for the Saints, 26 for the Bills, 25 for the Colts, 25 for the Buccaneers, 23 for the Titans, 23 for Washington, 22 for the Chiefs, 22 for the Ravens, 22 for the Seahawks, 22 for the Rams, 21 for the Browns, 18 for the Packers, 18 for the Bears. All right, so if we throw all of our little Dave and Alex stats together here, the teams that can win, let's say if we throw out the teams that have bad, that don't meet the turnover threshold, and the teams that don't meet the under 6.1 defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, here are one of these 4 teams will win the Super Bowl, Alex. The Bills, the Saints, the Buccaneers, or the Steelers.
Oh, teasing the Steelers for last. So we would say the Bills, Buccaneers, Saints, and Steelers.
Right. Those are if we were to live and die by a combination of my adjusted net yards, or specifically defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, and your 23 or more sacks or takeaways. Why do I keep saying sacks? 23 or more takeaways on a regular season of a Super Bowl winner going back for the last 20 seasons. Last 20 Super Bowl champs have had 23 or more takeaways on a season. All right?
Okay.
So we combine those together. It's the Bills, the Saints, the Buccaneers, or the Steelers. Now, if it's one of those 4 teams that win it, we're going to look like we're going to be taking victory. We're going to have a victory lap podcast.
We got a Wonder Twin Powers activate thing going on here. My takeaway stat, your adjusted net yard stat combined to predict the Super Bowl winner.
What do you think in all seriousness, what do you think about the history of those two stats combined, and really the culmination of it being the 4 teams there?
Yeah, it's interesting because it doesn't include the Packers. It doesn't include the Chiefs. So it doesn't include your top 2 1 seeds in football. And so this will be a good test of how good this is. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes can probably break any stat or any history ever. And Aaron Rodgers could say the same. So it'll be interesting to see how well this stat holds up.
And now we got to context that too. Now they missed the cutoff on the takeaways by 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But you keep moving the bar,
Right.
And then on the adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat number, what did I say, 6.2, I think. So they just missed it by 0.1 there. Mm-hmm. They're close, but it would be moving the line in the sand ever so slightly if they did pull it off, which would, in my term, be a little bit of a loss for both of the stats, quite honestly, because it didn't meet the threshold.
It would be, but the quarterback influence grows and grows. And if you have him Mahomes, he can transcend a lot of history. But we'll see. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see how well the stat holds up.
And once again, history is history, but I thoroughly enjoy those stats, man. I love them. All right. I think we've got a lot of the one last one from Vince here. Is Derek Watt's special teams play worth what they're paying him? He's obviously not earning it playing offense there.
I think he's done well on special teams. He commands a good amount of attention, but given the salary cap issues, given the lack of health and offensive value, I have a strong feeling Derek Watt is one and done. I get it's not going to save you a lot of money, but it's going to save you something. That's probably the route they're going to have to take. They're going to have to turn over every single stone this offseason.
If you want to keep somebody like Juju and some of these other guys here, you're going to have to cut to the core here. And once again, you're not going to save. You'll save. Not much at all. You save about $1 million after roster displacement and all by cutting Derek Watt cap wise. So is it worth saving a net of $1 million by? I have a feeling that he's going to survive, Alex, because of that fact and that fact alone. If we were now, is he safe in 2022 if he got that far? No. Absolutely not, because you tend to save $2.75 million at that point there, and also older and yada yada. But is he $1 million a year special teams player? And I think that's what it comes down to in 2021.
Well, they cut Big Dan, they cut Jordan Berry basically to save cap space at the end of the season. So I think they'd be willing to do it with Derek Watt.
We will find out by March, though, because he is due a roster bonus, I believe, on March 20th of $1 million there. So I believe I got it. His cap number is scheduled to be 3.833333333 for 2021. Included in that is a $1 million roster bonus. He's got a dead money hit set to be let's see, a little bit over $2 million there. So yeah, 1.6666666666 is the cap savings prior to roster displacement. And if you displaced him with a minimum salary guy, you're looking at just right at around $1 million saved.
Yeah, it's not going to change things too much either way, but I think they got to just cut to the core, as you said. So that's my guess. We'll find out.
Are we at 2 hours?
A couple more minutes, about 4 more minutes. We'll be at 2 hours.
All right. I suppose great emails today. I told you we had some great emails today, and we did. Thanks for listening. Let's see. Alex and I will be back on. I almost called you Kevin because I'm reading a Kevin Stefanski headline up here right now, and I don't think we have anything yet on Filer or Spillane. We'll see. We still got a couple hours, I guess, before they get to practice here. In the meantime, you can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow me on the Twitter machine at Steelers Depot. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you'd like an ad, if you'd like to donate, go hit that PayPal button on the side. Get them all out of order here. All I know is if you like what we do, we appreciate you listening, and we will be back on Friday to preview Steelers versus Browns super wild card game. So with that, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.